All right, everybody. So this is Rex. I'm with TVFGC, and we're here today with another interview. We're here with Defend the North founder and CEO, the founder of Team, what is it, Team City? Or
Team
Team
Pie?
Pie? Yeah, there we go. Your City brand. So, yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, we have Andy here, man. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah. How's it up there in New York right now?
Good. I mean, this is the weather I love, the heat, the sun. As I mentioned to you before, I'm a big tennis player, arguably speaking, I feel like it's the toughest ball sport. So, I'm able to enjoy that in the summer. So, that's one of my favorite times of the year, definitely the summer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, tennis is definitely one of the sports like that I can definitely watch all day because it's like so aggressive how they go back and forth and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yes. And one of the reasons, like I just said, it's a difficult sport. It's something where you can't just jump into it and be good at it. You really got to put time into it. And that gives me a really good familiarity of comparing that to fighting games, right? Because fighting games, you can't just jump into it and be good at it,
Yeah,
at a certain level, you know what I mean? But for you to learn execution, combos, and stuff like that, strategies, and learning, matchup knowledge, right? Then player knowledge. A lot of that comes very relative when it comes to tennis as well. So that's why I think I grow into love it the same way as I do fighting games.
okay. Yeah, that's definitely understandable relating it to fighting games, but I want to go ahead and get into this and get to understand you and who you are a little bit more before we get into like
Sure.
Defend the North. But so what's your origins in the FGC and you say you grew up in Queens, so what was it like growing up in New York, one of the meccas of the FGC?
So, before, yeah, I know we won't talk about Defend the North yet, but the only reason why I'll mention it now is because that's actually the mission statement of Defend the North, and that is to make teenagers aware of the fighting game community. And I mention that now because I learned about the FGC pretty late, which is in 2000, back when Capcom versus SNK 2 came out.
Hmm.
And when I seen this, this profession, not professional, but where people really put time into being really good at the game, knowing about frame data, knowing about the community, where I just first picked it up from Shoryuken, just seeing that kind of scene just, was thriving and hungry for competition. I just felt so, it just related to me, and I just stuck to it, and I'm glad that I did. So I started at 2000. Back in my teenage years, I was into other things, being a young adult, I guess you could say, enjoying my young adult life, trying to sneak into clubs and, going out partying and driving around the city and stuff. So, what happened was, I didn't know into the FGC until I just took a girl on a date, and it was at this arcade. And it was like a David and Buster's thing. It was called Broadway City, but
Hmm.
they would have a bunch of things. They would have the club at night, so I took her out there, and then, me seeing people playing Capcom versus SNK 2, I'm thinking I'm nice, like, oh, I'll be able to kick their butt, you know what I mean? But then I got washed, and I'm like, man, how are they doing all this stuff? Like, how they put all that time into being that good at it? Because back in my neighborhood, I thought I was the nicest, but the
Hmm.
way he demolished me, I'm like, man, like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So, I became friends with some of them, and then they explained to me about the FGC and Chinatown Fair and all these other spots where there's high level competition, and it really just opened up my eyes. And again, just learning about Shoryuken and getting all that data information, getting all the matchup knowledge, getting all the frame data information, even though for a while, I really didn't care about the frame data, but really just getting that information that you can easily go to people and ask them, and then they're very helpful. So that's the community that I've known to grow and love, and I became attached ever since. So just fast forwarding, that's why I had that mission statement become Defend the North, because I just wish I'd known it when I was a teenager. I'm not going to say that I was one of the kids being rowdy and get myself into trouble, but I was definitely following the wrong crowd, right?
Yeah.
And my interest was in other things. But had I known about, the fighting game community, I think, I would have, I would have been better involved and had something to, be proud of myself to be good at the time. And unfortunately, we're in a city where there's 8 million people, but they don't know that the fighting game community exists. There's a good chance that it doesn't. So this is why one of the reasons why I, developed this to try to, go to all the high schools, go to all the middle schools, high schools and colleges to let them know that this exists so that we can hopefully bring more players in.
Yeah, it's always cool to hear people's like origin stories in the FGC because I came in so late compared to everybody else. Where I grew up, there was no hearing about an FGC period. I had to make it to
Right,
college before I heard about it. So
right.
it's always cool to hear, especially growing up in like New York. New York and California is the two main places that you hear about like origins of FGC.
Right.
So now you talked about like how you thought you were the nicest in your area and stuff like that. And a lot of people think like that. So when it came to me, I thought I was nice where I came from, and then you get around other people and they're on a whole nother level. So it got to that point where I was like, okay, I need to, I want to be in the scene, but I need to transition into something else. Like, so how did that transition of starting to TO actually come in for you?
So yeah, so that happened in 2007 or 2008. No, I think it was 2008. I say this story all the time. I just like saying it because it's actually what got me into being so passionate about being a TO. Back when Street Fighter 4 came out, that was a great game for us, even though I was like heavy on Capcom versus SNK 2 still, 2008.
Mm,
And I was kind of one of those guys like, you know what, nah, this is a new game. Nah, the game that I play is better. Third Strike, Capcom versus SNK 2. And you know, competition started getting, better and better, Street Fighter 4, so I started jumping onto it. And at the time, Justin Wong was like our god, right? Justin
yeah.
Wong, so and he represent New York. So as long as Justin did not lose to anybody and no long, anywhere in the US, that
Yeah.
means that, we're good, right? Because we get the best competition and it's coming from him.
Yeah.
So when they started having big tournaments in other states and Justin Wong would go up against them, he would lose, right? He was losing to like Gutex and Mike Ross, right? Let's say those two, because Mike Ross was known for his Honda and Gutex was known for his Raw. Shout outs to those two, by the way.
Mm,
And I that hit home, like, man, like how is our best going out there losing to these guys? Does that mean that the best is really in the West Coast, So this is why I started throwing events saying, hey, listen, we need to give Justin Wong help, right? Like we need to show that it's more than just Justin Wong. We need to get more representation to the West Coast, right? And
mhm.
for that reason, I started throwing tournaments where it's like, okay, if you win this tournament, besides Justin Wong, if you win this tournament, you get flown out to Evo. So I would call it Road to Evo. I'm not really sure at the time if one was already created, like that name was done before, but that's what I would do. And I just started doing small tournaments until I would finally do a big tournament like that, where you get a flight to Evo. And I just started trying to grow bigger and bigger to just get more competition involved. But before I started doing a major, I really went to the other TOs that was doing it around my area, not in New York City though, because no one was doing it in New York. I went to them and said, "Hey, why don't you do one in New York City?" And they're like, "Nah, it's not worth it. The cost of real estate and the ROI is not there."
Mhm.
And I would hear like, "Oh no, there's really no point because the means of being able to get a cheap venue doesn't really equate to it because." New York City is not a place where hotels are desperate for room nights.
Mhm.
So I just really said to myself, hey, you know what? If I don't do it, no one else will. So let me do it, right? At the time, and this is just me being real with you. At the time, I had a side hustle, right? Where, like, at the time, eBay, they would let you fix computers where you would like receive it. You could fix a computer and you send it back off and you get paid for it. So at the time, that was my hustle.
Mhm.
So I would use that money to save it up and then be able to throw a major tournament. And that's what I did, right? So I did my first one in 2010 or 2009, I'm not sure. And that one was the same thing, but it was more people, right? I had like 200 people. And, well, 200 people just for one game, which was Street Fighter 4. And I forget who won. I think it was probably Sanford, if I'm not mistaken. And he was the one that had the flight to Evo. And I was running other games too, and I had help from Biggie at the time. So I did about one or two of those, and then I just said, you know what? Let me just stop doing big ones for a year or two, and let me save up for a really big one, right? Where I get a ballroom, go into a big hotel. Well, at the time, to me, it was a big hotel.
Yeah.
So that's when I started Defend the North, and it was in 2014. I got the name from my boy Lee Chung. Shouts out to Lee Chung, and he gave me the idea of the name, and that's what I took that and ran with it, because I told him what the idea that I had in my head, and he
Oh, that
ran with it
makes
with the
sense.
name.
That
Yeah,
makes sense. Defend the North.
yeah.
That makes sense.
So the idea was, I told him, I said, listen, why does New York, which I thought was the best in the FGC, why do we have to always travel out to these states when we're supposed to be the best? Why isn't it that the best comes to us? You know, everyone should be coming to fight the best. We shouldn't be the best shouldn't be going out to all these other places. And that, that still sticks with me to this day. I can go on and on about how just biasly speaking, that I feel like we run, I mean, a lot of different type of cultures, but especially the FGC, from Chinatown Fair, from Henry Sen, NLBC, from, Justin Wong, Chris G. Now we have IDOM. There's just so much rich, um, it just so much, um, a rich culture that we have here, and a lot of diversity too, but more so that, the strength that we have in the community of New York. And part of that reason is because we have so much competition within ourselves. Even though it may seem like on the outside we're all cool with each other, but no, it's like some real strong competition where it's like, they really put their passion into it, because they really don't want to lose to the people that, that they're, I don't want to say the word against, but it's just rivalry. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. Rivalry. Big rivalry up in New York. It could be from different boroughs, it could be from different cliques, so yeah.
Man, that's cool to hear like that whole story. I'm glad you gave that whole spiel, because people really don't know. We hear a lot of things about events being like this, TOs, that, but just to hear like that backstory of what you did to get to where you are, and the inspiration behind the name and stuff like that is like valuable to the people who, especially you and the people who you have working with you on the event, especially those who's been there for a while. So that's dope to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So March 11th, 2020, that's the date where I know for me, like, it set in like, okay, this stuff is serious, but that's the day that the NBA said they were going to shut down or cancel the season because of COVID. So that's something that really affected the whole FGC and kind of transitioned the FGC into like a whole new era of wondering, should we go to online and stuff like that for the future, So how was it for you being, because I think around that time you were actually like preparing for another Defend the North to come up. So
Yes.
how was that time for you, and what was it like going through COVID, getting until now?
So, online always has a special place in my heart, because I don't really remember what year it was where it released on Xbox, the original Xbox, for Capcom versus SNK 2. It was called EO. I think that was stand for easy operation, because they had some mode where you can do easy inputs and stuff. Um, that was the only time where I really cared to get a new gen console at the time, where they introduced, okay, yeah, you can play this game online and play against other people. Now, even though they had huge input lag, and at that time, the game had no roll cancel, right? And some other edits too. I don't recall what it is, but it didn't matter to me because this is where you get to play people from all over, you know, and that really, that's why I was able to get all the good competition, all the random people, it's where you don't have to leave your house. So I always loved online from that time, no matter how bad it was. I always accepted it and appreciated it because this is something that we didn't have. So fast forward up into 2020, um, where COVID happened. I was planning to do the event as you said, and I I I was honestly, blowing it off, thinking like, oh, it's not that serious until I started seeing all these people affected by it and all these drastic changes and all these drastic measures. And that's when I was like, okay, no, this actually is serious. I actually remember when I was talking to, because I have a group chat or whatever, and I was talking to Arturo was saying, man, this is real serious. And I was like blowing it off. And I was like, nah, this isn't a pandemic. And then they announced it as being a pandemic. And I'm like, man, no, this is really serious. And I
Yeah.
was thinking to myself, man, Art was right. I was really underplaying this thing, right? So at that time, that's when, I really hunkered down and took the whole thing seriously. And even though I was appreciating online before, I was definitely appreciating it now since a lot of people started doing online tournaments. Now, everyone else, had their gripes about it, doing online, making it be like a serious pot prize event. I wasn't against it, even though a lot of people say, oh, lag is an obstacle and stuff like that. But the only thing I would say to myself, because I'm old school, is, man, you didn't play on the original Xbox back on CBS2. You know what I mean? Like, you complaining about input lag, like you don't know nothing yet. So it happens to me all the time where it happens all the time where I see matches that may have been interrupted because of lag spikes or stuff like that. But I still think that we've come a long way to online. Now, back to my event, I really waited to the last opportunity moment for me to cancel. It gave me a hard time to try to, it took me a hard time to try to try to cancel with my hotel, but they allowed me to do it because the person that was the sales manager, he was directly affected by it. But before that, he was really giving me a hard time to cancel.
Yeah.
So up until that moment, I really was sitting back and just waiting for everything to pass by. But good thing is that a lot of people were doing online tournaments. So
Mm.
that was something that, and especially like Capcom, right? Capcom did their Pro Tour online. So at least I was still being entertained by watching online tournaments. But until then, I really had to sit back and just watch everyone do it until it was time to rise again with an event.
What was the inception of the theme that you guys are going with now, or the what you are trying to accomplish with this Defend the North with an all PC for your main games tourney? Like, where did the idea first come in out of, like, you know what, like maybe we can do that, or maybe that is a good idea. Like, what was the inception of it?
Yeah, so I'm a PC guy, right? I'm a PC guy. I should say, no, I should say I'm an IT person, right? I have an IT background, but I
Okay.
don't have a big background when it comes to PC gaming. That was something that really didn't, it really occur to me, even though people would say it here and there. But I just knew that my fighting games were on console, and all the tournaments that I ran and what everyone preferred was on console. So it was up until the pandemic where I said, you know what, let me build myself another PC, right? But this time it'll be, for gaming, right? Having a GPU and stuff. And I heard a few people here and there saying Street Fighter 5 is better on PC. So I said, you know what, let me give it a try. I bought a PC. Well, I built one, sorry. I built the parts, built the PC, and it seemed okay. I noticed a little bit of a difference. But after like maybe 4 or 5 months into it, I told, Lee Chung, I told him that. And he's like, nah, man, you got to get yourself gaming monitor like 144 hertz, So I said, okay, you know what? Let me do that. I got myself a 27-inch, 44 hertz. And once I did that, I went from, ultra diamond to like master, and I'm like, what is going on here? And then I went from, master to grandmaster. Now I know that really probably doesn't mean a lot, right? Because that's still like, kind of bottom of the totem pole. But I started noticing that a lot of things I used to do preemptively, or I would react preemptively because I was afraid of stuff. That didn't happen no more. I was actually able to react to things. So when I realized that, and it was because it being on PC and because, you're playing on 144 hertz, I told myself that, you know what? And this was back in 2020, mind you. I said, you know what? I don't see the reason why we should be playing on console when it's better on PC.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 2020. So at that time, I thought to myself, hey, you know what? Maybe I can just gather a bunch of old PCs, not old like ancient, but something that we can run a game with minimal, minimal GPU, right? Where it'll just be able where we can run on 1080p and run on 144 hertz. So when I started doing that, at the same time, I was waiting to see, okay, is it okay to start doing events again? When I did that, I kept looking for other events. Sorry, I kept looking for other PC companies that might be interested in taking on this challenge of pushing us FGC into PC. Now, while this was happening, I started noticing that Arturo kept on preaching, and everyone else too, other people, they were saying, oh, PC's better, PC's better, PC's better. Here's why. This is what everyone should play on. So fast forward to 2 years later, I seen that there seemed to be an opportunity to start doing a major tournament again because other people started doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I started going heavy into trying to reach out to sponsors again. And lucky enough, MSI reached back and said, listen, we're interested. And once that happened, that ignited the fire, that put the battery in my back for saying, you know what, let's look for a venue, let's do this, let's knock out all the check marks and make sure we do this to make it a successful event. And to me, this is an exciting time more than ever because we're about to transition into another generation of consoles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Xbox 5. um,
The names are
PlayStation
mad.
5, yeah. Yeah, and the Xbox Series. So I thought to myself, you know what, this is the best time to do this because instead of people trying to look out for buying these new generation consoles, let's see if we can just get them to spend, just a little bit more just to get, a gaming PC where they'll be good for, it'll pretty much be future proof. So that's pretty much what did it for me. It was really for my own experiences and why I felt that we should give PC a try.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you're doing this. And one of the questions I want to have is like, has it really like set on you like the gravity of what it is that you're doing? Because I was at Evo, and we were talking about it at Evo. I had friends, we were talking about it at Evo, and I actually went and covered the NA versus EU exhibition that was happening that
Oh,
MSI
nice.
was sponsoring. Yeah, so TVFGC was there actually like covering the event and stuff like that. So a lot of people were talking about it and they were saying how hyped they was to like see Defend the North, and a lot of people actually going to it just because of the first major that's actually going to do this. So it's almost like it's revolutionary what you're gonna do for the scene. So has it really like hit you like the gravity of what you're doing? Like, do you have a lot of people coming up to you talking about like, man, like I hope it succeeds. Like this is the event that can show us that we can actually do this.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people say, man, I hope this succeeds because we need to change the game. I've had a lot of people say, good luck. This is something that's really tough that you're doing, but I hope it works out. I even had some people saying, "Nah, this is not gonna work." I've heard it from all angles, and I appreciate the honest feedback either way, whether if it's positive or negative, right? That's just how I always see it. I'd rather hear it coming from you than for me hearing it from other people saying that it came from you. That's how I've always been. I'm old school. I'm old fashioned.
Mhm.
I'm not one of those people that try to like put my drama out there on the internet or try to talk about my problems about someone else. You know what I mean? So when anybody said to me, listen, let me just come to you and tell you this, they say they peace and that's it. I always appreciate it, whether if it's negative or positive, because it takes a lot of energy to do something like that. Some people would just rather sit in the back and just talk about it to other people. But anyway, I appreciate it all. I accept it all. And honestly, it's honestly the negativity that drives me more to make sure this becomes successful more than anything, to be honest. Because a lot of people think that it can't be done or won't be done correctly. And I know that I've set the measures in place for it to be not only good, but meet over the expectations of everyone else. And if you went to the exhibition, like you said, I'm sure that you've noticed that it was not only successful, but it was actually very enjoyable, very seamless at that. A lot of people that played, the top players that played, and we did the casual play the next day, everyone enjoyed themselves. Everyone didn't really notice a difference between PC and console, but for the only reasons of why we changed it, which is the optimization settings and it having, better response time. So that's the real reason why I started this, and that's the only reason why I wanted to give everyone that experience. And I was able to achieve that. So I expect to give that same energy when it comes to DTN.
Well, we here at TVFGC are definitely rooting for you, man. We on the team of
Thank you.
hope. It blows up. I mean, it does everything correctly. Like everybody just sees this, like, man, this was a great event, and it sets that tone of like we actually can do this, because there's a lot of back and forth of like it can happen, it can't happen, all this other stuff. So we're rooting for you, but
Thank you. Thank you.
so the next two questions are just questions to kind of get your opinion on some things like current events in the FGC. And with you being a TO, this is something that you could definitely speak to. But there's definitely lately have been discussions of like player payouts at tournaments and things like that. Like how coming from a TO, like how can we change that? Like how can we go about giving players who plays higher payouts? Like what are some solutions that you feel like that would help that?
So right now, the two ways that we've known for that to change is either crowdfunding or sponsorships, right? Those are the only two ways that we know of that. And to my knowledge, I could be wrong, but Evo is the biggest tournament, period, right? And to me, that's still the biggest prize pool that anyone can get that's non-crowdfunded and non-sponsored, right? And when they don't have that in the prize pool. So, for me, especially me being old school, where, first place prize to a tournament would have been like, $100, $200, so, myself, I would have been more hungry about the competition, not necessarily the prize money. Not dismissing that people that feel that that's important, but it just coming from myself. Now, when looking at it from the outside in, and if they're using this as their main source of income, I can understand that that they would have gripes about it. So I'm sure that something like this that happened where it's all eyes on everyone else, that a big event would just keep their ears open to the ground and keep their feet ready to start moving into something that would be in the interest for the players, because as a TO, that's all we have to do. We hear the problems, we create solutions for it, because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, we want to be able to create a better experience for the players, because this is what we do this for. This is who we do this for. We do it for the players. So I expect for there to be better changes later on down the line. Yeah.
So a question that's kind of piggybacking off that, and this is the last of the main questions, but there just seems to be like, conversations like this come up, but it just seems like a lot of people just really don't have a lot of info about how like tournaments are ran. You have things out here that people will say like, Man, TOs out here just rolling in money has to be
Yeah.
player payouts are like this. So, but a lot of people don't know things about like, the business of running events, the financials behind the event logistics and stuff like that. Do you feel like there needs to be more people willing to educate people on like the behind the scenes businesses of how events are ran? Because it seems like a lot of people don't know. Like even me for myself, like, I'm still trying to figure out the ins and outs and stuff like that to better help come up with solutions. So do you feel like people should probably TOs should help educate more, or people should just really more so learn about business? What can we do to help people like educate themselves?
That's a good question. When anytime someone asks me a question like that, or whenever I see someone on the internet talking about, oh yeah, TOs are making boatloads of money. I have kids, so it just reminds me of like when my kid is in the store, and they're crying to like get candy or getting this and that or getting something very expensive. You know what I mean? And they have no idea what the value, what the idea of money is or time, right, for that matter. That always comes to mind anytime I see that, because it's really the same concept where these these people that are saying that, they really don't understand the background to actually what's going on. They just see all these players there, or you know, they see more than what they're able to create, and that's why they don't see the business part of it, right? There's expenses, there's payouts, and the last thing that, obviously, us as TO organizers, we do want profit, but we'll be happy if we just break even, and a lot of people come to me for those type of advices because they know that I'm very transparent. I'm very transparent when it comes to every single penny, dollar, anything that's being spent, because it's not something that's easy. And to answer your question, I think anyone that, takes business classes or anything of that nature, that would be enough for them to understand how it works as being a TO, because they understand that, okay, nothing really is free. We do have the good part that we do have is that we do get a lot of volunteers, but there's a lot of underlying payments that have to be done that people don't even realize, like even paying for tables and chairs, paying
Mhm.
for any little thing that you see at the event, like you actually have to pay for that. So as TOs, we do the best we can that can give people a better gaming experience. And that also comes with money. So when someone tries to say to me that, oh yeah, they're making, a crap ton of money, I'm saying to myself, okay, he obviously doesn't have a business sense, because they could, you know, I don't want to say do an audit, but they can inquire, before making a statement like that. But that's really all I could say, because if it was someone else that had a different business, they would never come to another type of business and say, "Oh yeah, nah, this place is making tons of money," without understanding at least the background. So it's just that simple. So when I see people make comments like that, I'm like, okay, they have the mind of a kid when they're in this store. They don't understand the business sense of, or they don't understand the concept of money or time. So
Yeah. I think every individual, when you get to a certain age, should go and learn financial management just for yourself,
yes,
and
yes,
just those
yes,
simple
and business
concepts.
management. Yep.
Yeah, those simple concepts that you will learn from organizing and managing your own money, you'll be able to
Yes.
go in places and be like, okay, you wouldn't say things like, okay, this TO is obviously making boatloads of money, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, one,
I'm gonna be transparent about something. I mean, this isn't something I should make public, but I'm transparent, right? Like I only profited my event the first year that I've done it and the last year that I've done it.
mhm,
Everything in the middle, all losses, you know?
okay,
But during I was getting all those losses, people were saying, "Oh, nah, he's making boatloads of money," you know? So it's a little disheartening to hear that, although you always want people to get the impression, oh yeah, they're fine, they're good. But in all reality, it's like, no, it's really when you become conflicted. Like, this is your passion. You really try to make a good, awesome event. Is it worth doing it when, you're not getting the means of what you want, you know, or, do you stick it out? and just hope that you can change the way everything's happening for your scene, you know? So, but I'm still here. I'm glad I stuck it out. And, the reason why I stuck it out is because I just at the time I thought to myself, if I don't do it, no one else would. And I'm glad that I was the one to do it because, you know, our scene is very big and very strong, and why shouldn't we have one,
Yeah,
despite any of the obstacles that New York City would have?
yeah. Well, I know you said we were talking about finances and stuff, and one of the main concerns I hear about running an all PC tournament is just like, oh, it's going to cost way too much money. Like we might as well stick with the consoles and stuff like that because it's going to cost way too much money.
Yeah.
Like, did you find in trying to do this that it would be way more of a financial burden to try to go all PC than over console?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But that's why I'm glad that we have a PC sponsor to be able to help out with that tremendously.
Yeah.
And they are willing to help. I see that now. And for that reason, my goal is to really spearhead this and go to other TOs that want to do this too.
Hmm.
Because this isn't something that I can keep to myself. If this is a movement that we're trying to create, then how can I? Right? So I might as well be the one to help spearhead for it to go and be successful in other places. So that's pretty much my goal for whoever wants to do it, right? I'm not shoving it to other TOs that, oh, you need to do it or this is the only way. Not at all. It's just really just creating a level playing field by allowing other options on the table. So that's really how I see it more than anything.
Okay. I'm glad for the transparency and stuff like that because this is stuff that people need to know because one of the things that I do I kind of like you look at it halfway like when people say things like, oh, TLs make a lot of money. One way I look at it is like, man, you must really don't have that financial understanding, but also at the same time it's just like, it doesn't seem like many people are giving the information out there about how much it is to run a tournament, so I appreciate the transparency.
No problem. No problem. No problem.
So
I
these
mean,
last,
if anybody saw my expense report, they'll probably think I'm lying. You know what I mean? Because they're like, nah, he's inflating these numbers. There's no way. But it's actually true. Especially being in a state or a city where, real estate square footage is not your best friend. Like
yeah,
everyone knows, New York City and California, not the best places to try to do so. Well, I should say Southern California, right? LA, not the best places to try to do something when it comes to real estate because where it needs real estate. So, that's definitely an eye opener right there.
well, I only have like some quick questions, like just like some lightning round, and it's just four of them to get your
Okay.
quick answers. But so one, what's your favorite fighting game of all time?
Man, I want to say the one that I really love the most, and I did not play much of it as I should have, is I'm gonna say Melty Blood Actress again.
Oh, okay. That's a
Yeah, because I'm into versatility. Like that game had so much versatility to it. And then, I would say obviously a close second was Capcom versus SNK2, and then I would say Third Strike. Those are my definite top three. But I'd have to say, even though I didn't put as much time as the other games, but Melty Blood Actress again, definitely, definitely.
we got to
And simply because of versatility, that game had it had a little bit of everything. It had like everything. I just wish I put more time into it, like I should have if I loved it that much.
I know the people at Climax of Night, Shinobi and them will be they'll love to hear that answer. But so you're old school, so I mean, this will be unique to hear what you're saying. Your answer on this one, but all button controllers, or are you just sticking with the stick?
Stick, and only using 6 buttons. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. No shortcut buttons, none of that. No, I need
No
to be able
cheat
to
box.
press the ones that. Well, no, just being able to press the ones that the hitbox thing. I mean, man, I don't even know how. man, that just looks so difficult, man. I don't see how people do it. You know what I mean? But I mean, listen, Japan is going strong with that now, and some players in the U.S., a lot of players in the U.S. and other countries too, they're doing it. So there has to be, some great advantages to it. It just looks complicated to me, but I'm sure it's. I mean, they got used to it. You know what I mean? Daigo and um I believe Kawano, who won Evo, I believe he uses hitbox as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people are having success in it. But I'm just old school, so I guess it's like, I just gotta have my stick.
Yeah. Should there be another Street Fighter Cross Tekken?
Man, can't we just get another Capcom versus SNK too, man? Like that should be the next crossover. You know what I mean? Um, I liked, I liked, I liked Street Fighter Cross Tekken. I liked it. It was only until everybody started bashing it, and I started saying, you know what? Let me just go on to something else because I don't want to invest so much time into this, and then everybody, you know what I mean? And everybody just transitioned to another game. It was a great idea. That
Mm,
was a great that game was a great idea. It looked good to me. It looked good to me.
yeah. Yeah, man. If it was me, I'd have just been like, I would have. For me, if it's not another Marvel versus Capcom or another Capcom versus SNK, I'm like you. We shouldn't be talking about another crossover right now because
Yeah,
that's what the
yeah,
FGC
yeah,
needs.
yeah, yeah. That's what we need, man. Another Capcom versus SNK, but again, right, we just talked about this.
Mm,
This is something they want. They obviously would have done it, but there's really some inside, must be financial licensing, things like that, and why something like that can't be done. So, it's not about what we want. It's about what can happen.
and my last question for you. Yes, here it is right here. So IGN released their top 10 fighting games of all time list, and going from 10 on down, they have 10. The 10th best fighting game of all time is Mortal Kombat 9. Then they have 9 Skullgirls, 8 Virtual Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, 7 Killer Instinct on Xbox One,
Okay.
6 Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, 5 The King of Fighters 13, 4 Dragon Ball Fighters, 3 Tekken 7, 2 Guilty Gear Strive, and 1 is Street Fighter Third Strike. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Like, hearing that list, do you agree with most of that list? Because when I first heard it, I was like, I kind of looked at it sideways for a minute. So hearing that list, I don't know if you saw it before,
I
but
didn't.
what's your take on that list?
Well, I'm just glad they put Third Strike as number one. Okay, because as I already told you, that's my top three. So they put that as number one. So that's all I really care about. Um, so if I heard anything other than my top three, I was gonna be salty. So I'm glad that their number one is my top three. I think KI should have been higher. I think I really hope we get another KI.
That's
I
another.
did get to dabble in that, so I really feel like KI should have been higher.
I
The
played
other
KI more
games,
than MK.
okay, okay, okay. Um, I don't know. I thought maybe a lot more people liked 10 more than 9, but I could be wrong. Um, well, I noticed that it seems like maybe IGN really voted on the games that had more visibility, if you ask me. Like, right, the more recent games have more visibility right now. So, I guess that's why you see a lot of those on the list because a lot of them are recent games.
Yeah,
A lot of people would say that Xrd was probably better than Strive. Um,
yeah,
Again, I didn't play it, but that's just from what I heard, what I hear. So it seems like maybe they were also taking into consideration the graphics, animations, you know, maybe the simplicity, possibly. They were taking those into consideration. And obviously, they're going to take Third Strike because of, you know, our love for the game. You know what I mean? Like, it better have been top three,
yeah.
Otherwise, no one would take their list seriously. Um, but I mean, it's all opinionated. Everyone can have their list. Again, like I said, as long as Third Strike was top 3, that's all I care about.
Yeah, the most gripe I heard from the list was people debating should they have put Marvel vs. Capcom 2 over Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Because they only pick one from each series. So a lot of people were saying like they should have took 2 over 3.
I didn't know that. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, Street Fighter. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is definitely a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel 3 definitely brought like a new generation of players. So I don't know. I would say more of a toss-up. There might have been something that had to be a deciding factor.
Yeah.
If I were to guess, maybe it would have been the graphics. Maybe it would have been the more versatile characters, because you were able to have more playable characters versus 2, because you really were playing like maybe 6-7 characters in Marvel 2. You know what I mean? Whereas Marvel 3, you had more versatility. So
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that's the only reason why I would vote for 3 over 2, because you had more playable characters in a tournament level.
Yeah. Yeah, I had somebody school me because I was like, man, they really put score girls as top 10 fighting games of all time. Because I was like, I didn't think it should be there, but somebody schooled me and was like, man, I'm sad you think that way, and then gave me like a whole paragraph of why it should be there. So I was like, okay, I got you.
It's one of those games where it's like, even though it's not over, it's still thriving. It's one of those games like, man, this game must be a really good game. I wish I had the time to get into it. It's really just about time, because that is definitely one of the games that I would have gotten into, because they really have a thriving scene,
Yeah.
But it really begs the question of like, I'm wondering why. I mean, I consider Smash a fighting game. They didn't even put that on the list.
Yeah, they said they didn't want to do platforms because it deserves its own list. But if they concluded platformers, like it'd have been hard to argue not putting Smash in the top 4.
Right. Any
Yeah.
Smash for that matter. One of the things, really, the most important thing, even though I don't play Smash, I always tell myself I would, because I always hear my friends talk about it, and I'd be like, okay, I would probably play this. Like, what type of character plays more my style? Like someone that's like, it's hard to get a win on. It's hard to use and hard to win with, and you're really gonna go through the struggle before actually getting good at it. So I would hear like Samus or Link, or like characters like that, where it's like a hard learning curve, or the Ice Brothers. Is that what
Ice
they call?
Climbers.
Ice Climbers? Yes. But one thing more than anything, I mean, I know this is not one of the things that would be the reason why you would vote it up, but the Smash community, I mean, they're amazing. The way they support each other, the way they support, the scene, the local scene, the major scene, it's amazing to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, if they considered that definitely would have had to been top 4, absolutely.
And their crossovers impacted culture. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like their crossovers hit like kind of like no other fighting game. So
yes.
but so that's it, man. That's all the questions I have for you. So anything else you want to say before you leave? Plug anything, announce anything you want the people to know before we sign off?
So, I just want to thank you for giving me this time and your space. I just want to thank everyone that's been supporting me. I want to thank everyone that's been hating on me, because that motivates me to get better. I just really want to thank everyone though that supports this new movement and going to PC. I know it's not something that's easy, but it's a long time coming. A lot of us play PC at home, and we think that we can't ever get to that moment where we can actually have that same experience offline at a wide event. But we're making it happen. So, I just want to thank everybody for that. And my event again, October 21st to the 23rd. It's going to be a 3-day event in Brooklyn, New York, and we're going to go out, show out, and have fun.
We appreciate you for taking the time to do the interview with us, man. we love what we're doing in the FGC, or we want to make a change in the FGC and stuff like that. So just to be able to, after not so long starting content like this, be able to sit down with, people like you, TOs and stuff like that, of some of the biggest events that we have in the scene. I mean, we're appreciative that you take the time to talk with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, but that's all, everybody. We'll catch you guys on the next interview. So make sure you be looking out for the next one, and peace out.